The rain hadn't stopped in 3 days. It poured over the rusted fences of the old Coldwater Penitentiary, a forgotten maze of concrete and silence on the edge of town. Officer Mara Quinn stood at the gate, flashlight trembling slightly in her hand. Her K-9, a black shepherd named Rook, stared into the darkness beyond the corridor, tail stiff, ears pinned forward. When his first bark shattered the quiet, it echoed down the empty hall like a warning. Somewhere deep inside, a door creaked open on its own, and something or someone moved. If you enjoy stories that crawl under your skin and stay there, follow for more. The sound came again, a metallic thud, faint but deliberate. Mara's grip on her flashlight tightened. The beam trembled across the rain-slick floor of the entrance tunnel, cutting through years of grime and decay. "Easy, Rook," she whispered. The dog's body was rigid, his eyes fixed on the black maw of the east wing. The prison had been closed since '92. Everyone in Coldwater knew the story. The riot, the missing inmates, the warden who vanished without a trace. But tonight wasn't about ghost stories. At least, that's what Mara kept telling herself. Behind her, tires rolled to a stop on the gravel. She turned as Deputy Reed Hollis stepped out his cruiser, jacket soaked, his expression already irritated. Reed was younger, cockier, a man who liked his job for the authority it gave him, not the duty. "You called this in?" he said, slamming the door. "Dispatch got a report of lights inside." Mara answered. "Could be squatters. In this place, they'd have to be crazy." "Maybe they are." Rook barked again, sharp and low. The sound bounced off the concrete walls, then disappeared into a hollow silence. Reed frowned. "Dog's jumpy." "He's never jumpy," Mara said. "If he's barking, there's a reason." They stepped through the gate. The padlock had been cut cleanly with bolt cutters. Fresh. Mara crouched, running her gloved hand along the metal. "This wasn't weathered," she murmured. "Someone was here recently." Reed adjusted his flashlight, scanning the corridor. The air smelled of mold and rusted steel, the kind of damp that seemed to crawl under your skin. "I hate this place," he muttered. "You've never been inside?" "Not since I was a kid. My old man used to work here. Said it changes a person, watching what happens in cells like these." Mara didn't respond. She pushed open the heavy door. It groaned on its hinges, a sound that made her teeth clench. The main corridor stretched out ahead of them, lined with old cell doors. Rust streaked down the walls like dried blood. Water dripped steadily from the ceiling. Each step echoed, hollow and cold. Rook led the way, nose close to the floor, tail slicing the air. Halfway down the corridor, the dog stopped. A low growl rumbled in his chest. Mara shined her light ahead. The beam caught movement, a flicker like a reflection on glass. Then stillness. "Did you see that?" she whispered. "Probably just—" "Don't say rats." Mara cut him off. "Rook doesn't growl at rats." They moved forward. The light flickered again, this time revealing a small puddle of something dark and sticky near one of the cell doors. Mara crouched, touching the floor with the back of her glove. The liquid was thick, red. Reed swore softly. "That's blood." Before she could reply, a sharp bark tore from Rook's throat. Deeper, louder, almost panicked. He lunged toward the cell at the end of the row, claws scraping the concrete. The door there was half open. Its metal latch twisted like it had been forced from inside. Mara's pulse quickened. "Reed, cover me." He raised his weapon reluctantly. "If this is some homeless junkie, then we'll handle it," she snapped. She pushed the door open. Inside, her light revealed a cell that hadn't seen sunlight in decades. The bunk was overturned, the toilet shattered, and on the far wall, written in something brown and flaking, were words. "Still here." The letters looked smeared by a hand. A desperate one. Reed let out a shaky breath. "Okay, that's messed up." Mara didn't answer. She scanned the corners, her beam catching the faint outline of a vent near the floor. It was large enough for someone or something to crawl through. The metal was bent outward, like it had been forced open recently. "Reed, look at this." He crouched beside her. No way a person got through that. Then what did? A sound answered her, a dragging noise, faint but close, coming from behind the wall. Rook began barking wildly, pawing at the ground. The sound grew louder, closer, until it was right behind the vent. Mara took a step back, hand hovering near her holster. The vent cover rattled once, then fell off completely. But nothing came out, only a cold gust of air that smelled of iron and decay. They cleared the rest of the corridor, room by room. Nothing. Empty cells, peeling paint, the distant hum of rainwater seeping through cracks in the roof. But Mara couldn't shake the feeling that something had been watching them from the shadows. As they reached the junction at the end of the east wing, Reed spoke, his voice quieter now. You ever think about why they shut this place down for good? Officially, the riot killed 6 inmates and 2 guards. They called it unsalvageable. And unofficially, Mara looked at him. You tell me, your dad worked here. Reed hesitated. His jaw tightened. He never talked about it. Just said there were things that didn't make sense. Prisoners who went missing. Voices at night. Like the building itself didn't want to let them go. Mara gave a small, humorless smile. Sounds like a hell of a bedtime story. Yeah, except he stopped sleeping after it happened. Before she could respond, her radio crackled. Static hissed through the line. Then a voice distorted low. You shouldn't be here. Mara froze. Dispatch, repeat that? No answer. Just more static. Reed frowned. What the hell was that? The radio cut again. Leave before dark. Then silence. Rook let out a low whine. They exited the wing briefly to check their car signals. Outside, the storm was worse. Sheets of rain blurring the tree-line, wind howling through broken glass. The main radio tower was only half a mile away, yet their unit stayed dead. Signals jammed. Mara muttered, maybe interference from the storm. Or maybe not. She turned back toward the prison. Its silhouette loomed in the dark like a jagged scar against the sky. Reed sighed. You really think we should keep going? You can wait here if you want, Mara said. But something's inside that building, and I'm not leaving until I know what. For a moment, Reed just stared at her, the rain streaking down his face. Then he nodded once. Fine, but if I die in there, I'm haunting you. Get in line. They re-entered through the side access door, the one leading to the isolation block. The hinges shrieked as they pushed through. The air was colder here. Heavy, suffocating. Rook's nails clicked on the floor, echoing too loud in the silence. As they moved deeper, the architecture changed. Narrower halls, thicker doors. Each cell had a small slot near the top, like an eye that could never close. Isolation, Reed muttered. The worst of the worst were kept here, or the ones they didn't want anyone to see. Mara's flashlight flicked over a rusted placard. Wing D, restricted access. Her breath fogged in front of her. The temperature had dropped sharply. Rook began sniffing along the left wall, stopping suddenly near one of the cells. His fur stood on end. Then, with a sharp bark, he struck the door with his paw. Mara aimed her light. The small viewing slot was covered from the inside. Something metallic was wedged across it. Help me with this, she said. Reed grumbled but joined her. They forced the latch open together, the metal screaming in protest. The cell beyond was pitch black. Mara stepped closer, trying to see through the slot. Hello? Something moved inside, a faint shuffle, like feet dragging over stone. Reed raised his gun. Mara, back up. But she didn't. She leaned closer, squinting through the darkness. Is someone in there? Silence. Then a whisper, a dry, rasping voice that barely carried through the slot. Took everything, left us here. Mara stumbled back. Reed swore under his breath. Who's in there? Mara shouted. This is Officer Quinn with Coldwater PD. The voice came again, weaker now. He never left. Rook barked furiously, lunging at the door. Then came the sound, slow, deliberate, of knuckles dragging across metal from inside the cell. Reed's hand shook. I don't like this, Mara. We're leaving. Not yet. She stepped forward again, flashlight trembling. For an instant, Through the slot, she caught the glint of something, eyes reflecting the beam. But they weren't normal. They were milky white, and they were staring straight at her. Mara stumbled back, breathing hard. There's someone alive in there. Reed's voice was tight. That's impossible. Get the door open. They forced the latch, metal grinding until the door gave way with a heavy clang. The cell was empty, only chains on the floor, and a pile of ashes in the corner. Mara's heart pounded. She turned to Reed, but his face was pale, eyes fixed on the far wall. There, burned into the concrete, were fingerprints, black like soot, and between them, written in shaky letters. He watches. Rook whimpered, stepping backward. His tail dropped, ears flattened. The air felt thick, electric, as if the walls themselves were listening. Then, faintly, from deeper in the block, came another sound. Footsteps, slow, measured, coming closer. Mara turned off her flashlight. Lights out. They stood still, breath shallow. The footsteps stopped just beyond the corner. And then a voice, not from a radio, not from the dark, but whispering close, as if someone was right behind her. Welcome back, Officer Quinn. Mara froze. Her blood turned to ice. Because no one here should have known her name. The whisper hadn't come from Reed. It hadn't come from anywhere she could see. For a moment, Mara couldn't breathe, the dark pressing around her, and even Rook's usual low growls sounded muffled, restrained, like the dog was afraid to make a sound. The echo of that voice still hung in the air, too calm, too familiar. Reed's whisper broke through it. What did it say? Mara didn't answer. She switched her flashlight back on, beam slicing through the black. The corridor was empty, only wet footprints, hers and Reed's, stained the concrete. Nothing else moved. Quinn. Reed hissed. Who the hell knows your name out here? Could have been radio interference. Maybe it wasn't. Don't, he snapped, stepping closer. Don't lie to me. You heard it too. She looked at him then, really looked, beneath the false bravado. His eyes were wide, scared. Whatever this place was doing, it was working. Let's get to the warden's office, Mara said. If there's anyone left here, their records would be logged. Reed hesitated. You really think paperwork's what we need right now? I think we need answers. The warden's office sat at the far end of the administrative block. To get there, they passed through a stretch of hallway where the paint had peeled from every surface, curling like old parchment. Rook's nails clicked softly on the floor. At one point, they passed a shattered window. Beyond it, lightning flashed, illuminating the courtyard below. Dozens of old cell doors stood ajar in the rain, swaying slightly in the wind. Mara stopped. Reed, look. He followed her gaze. His face paled. I thought this wing was sealed. It was. For a brief instant, she thought she saw movement between the cells. A shadow darting, then gone before she could track it. Rook barked once, low and uncertain. Come on, Mara said, though her voice was thinner than before. We're almost there. The warden's office was a ruin. The ceiling half collapsed, furniture broken and scattered. Yet the massive steel filing cabinet still stood, scorched and rusted but unmovable. Mara walked behind the desk. The surface was buried in dust, except for a single clean spot the size of a hand. She ran her glove over it. Someone's been here. Reed knelt near the cabinets, prying one open. The drawers groaned, spilling yellowed folders across the floor. He picked one up, flipping it open. Inmate records, he murmured. Transfer logs, disciplinary reports. He trailed off, brow furrowing. These dates don't make sense. Mara leaned over his shoulder. The most recent file was dated June 12, 2015. But this place shut down in 92, she said. Reed looked up at her. Then who's been writing these? Lightning flashed outside, followed by the rolling crack of thunder. For a second, the entire room lit up in white. That was when Mara saw it. Carved deep into the wood of the warden's desk, half hidden beneath the dust. Property of Project Coldwater. She felt her stomach twist. The name rang a bell, faint, like something she heard long ago and tried to forget. Reed noticed her expression. You know what that is? No. She lied too quickly. He didn't believe her, but before he could ask again, Rook started barking, frantic, sharp barks that echoed down the hall. The dog stood at the doorway, fur raised, staring into the dark. Mara grabbed her light and swept it across the corridor. There, just at the far end, a figure, tall, still, standing perfectly in the center of the hall, facing them. Reed raised his gun. "Show me your hands." The figure didn't move. Mara's light flickered once, twice, then steadied. The hall was empty. "Jesus Christ," Reed whispered. Rook whined softly, tail between his legs. Mara's heart hammered against her ribs. "We're being toyed with," she said quietly. "By what?" Reed shot back. "A ghost." She didn't answer, because the truth, the thing she didn't want to say, was that the voice had sounded human. They regrouped near the old security office. The door hung open, its sign half torn. Inside, old monitors lined the wall, dusty, but still connected to the power grid through flickering wires. Mara brushed the cobwebs away and found a switch. For a moment, nothing happened. Then one of the screens came alive. Static. Then another, until 6 of them flickered on, showing grainy black and white camera feeds of the prison halls. Reed swore. These shouldn't even be working. Mara stared at the footage. The east wing was visible, the same hallway they just cleared. But the timestamp was wrong. April 3rd, 1992. The night of the riot. On screen, shadows moved. Prisoners running. Smoke filling the hall. A guard fell, then another, but in the corner of the frame, someone else stood watching. Not running, not fighting, just watching. The man was tall, bald, wearing a long coat instead of uniform. His face was obscured by static, but his hands were gloved, and in one of them he held a keyring. "Who's that?" Reed asked. Mara didn't answer, because she remembered that keyring. She'd seen it before, once years ago, in her father's drawer. He'd been a corrections officer. "Here." Rook barked again, snapping her out of it. The dog had backed into the corner, ears pressed flat. He was staring at the far wall, where one of the monitors had just shifted to a live feed. It wasn't grainy old footage anymore. It was them. The camera was showing security office. In real time, Mara, Reed, and Rook standing exactly where they were. Mara's throat went dry. "Reed," she whispered. He turned toward the screen. "What the—" Then something behind them moved in the reflection, a shape crossing the hallway door. They spun around. Nothing there. The monitor crackled, and the image froze, except for one thing. In the static overlay, words began to appear, drawn across the screen like handwriting. "Warden still in Wing D." Then the feed went black. They ran. Down the corridor, through the dripping dark. The smell of mildew gave way to something sharper, antiseptic and iron. The walls here were different, reinforced with new metal plating that didn't match the old prison architecture. "This wasn't part of the original building," Mara said. Reed's breath came fast. "Then what the hell is it?" Rook's nose was pressed to the ground again, tracking with determination. The dog turned sharply left at a locked door marked "Authorized Personnel Only." Mara rattled the handle. Locked from the inside. Reed crouched, pulling a small pry bar from his belt. "Step back." He jammed it under the latch, bracing his foot against the wall. With a grunt, he forced it open. The door gave way, and a blast of cold air spilled out. Inside was a stairwell leading down. "Basement?" Reed asked. "Records room, maybe?" But the steps were clean, too clean. The walls looked freshly painted. Someone had been maintaining this area long after the rest of the prison had rotted. They descended slowly, flashlights sweeping across the narrow space. At the bottom, the stairwell opened into a wide room filled with metal shelving. Crates lined the walls, labeled with numbers and stamped in red ink. Property of Project Coldwater. Reed whistled under his breath. "What the hell is this place?" Mara moved closer to one of the crates. The lid was half loose. She pried it open. Inside were manila folders, dozens of them, each labeled with inmate numbers, medical data, and strange symbols she didn't recognize. One file slipped from her hands and fell open to photograph. It showed a man strapped to a gurney. His eyes were open, mouth frozen mid-scream. A caption beneath it read, Subject 12, failed response to neural stimulation. Mara felt bile rise in her throat. These aren't inmates, she whispered. They're experiments. Reed backed away, shaking his head. No, this can't be. Reed. She was staring at another folder, the name written in black ink. Quinn David, her father. The sound of footsteps came from above, slow, deliberate, descending the stairs. Mara froze, clutching the folder. Reed drew his weapon. Who's there? He called out. No response. Only the sound of the steps, steady and calm. Then a voice, the same low tone that had whispered her name earlier. You shouldn't have come back, Mara. Her flashlight trembled. Who are you? The man stepped into view. He was tall, wearing a long dark coat, his face half shadowed by the failing light. In his right hand, a ring of old keys. Mara felt her stomach drop. Warden Hale, she said. Reed's gun wavered. That's impossible. He died in the riot. The man smiled faintly. No, I kept the lights on. Mara's pulse thundered in her ears. What did you do to them? She demanded. Hale tilted his head. What they told me to do. The program wasn't mine, I was just a keeper. What program? Reed snapped. Hale took another step forward. The light caught his face fully now. Pale, his eyes clouded but bright with something like madness. Project Coldwater was never about punishment, he said softly. It was about control, reconditioning minds that couldn't be trusted. Soldiers, inmates, officers, anyone they could erase and rewrite. Mara felt her knees weaken. My father was one of them. Yes, Hale said, almost gently, and he was the only one who woke up. Her hand shook. Where is he? The warden's smile faded. He's here. Rook growled, low and guttural. Hale pointed toward the far end of the basement, where another steel door stood, chained shut. He came back, Hale whispered. He said he wanted to stop it. But you can't stop what was made here. It waits. Mara stared at the door. Her breath clouded in front of her. Open it, she said. Hale's voice hardened. You don't want to see. Open it. He stared at her a moment longer, then slowly lifted the keyring. One key slid into the lock with a sound that seemed too loud in the stillness. He turned it. The chains fell away. The door creaked open, revealing darkness and the faint hum of machines. A shape stirred inside. Rook barked once, then twice louder, backing away. Something stepped forward into the light. A man, tall but frail, with eyes that seemed both empty and aware. His face was pale, scarred by thin lines like surgical incisions. Mara, the voice rasped. Her flashlight slipped from her hand. Dad. The reunion lasted only a heartbeat before Reed's voice broke it. Mara, he's not. Her father turned his head sharply, eyes narrowing at Reed. Not what? He said, voice trembling between confusion and rage. Not human? That's what they told me. That's what they told all of us. Mara stepped closer, tears blurring her sight. What did they do to you? I tried to stop them. They found out. They put me in the program. His words cracked. It doesn't stop, Mara. The voices, the commands. They're still in here. He tapped the side of his head. They never leave. Hale's voice came softly from behind her. He's unstable, Mara. Dangerous. No, she whispered. He's my father. Her father looked at her, eyes filled with something raw and broken. Please, end it before they make me hurt you too. Mara, Reed said, voice low, we have to go. But she didn't move. Then, without warning, her father lunged, not at her, but at Hale. He grabbed the warden by the throat, slamming him against the wall. You did this, he roared. Hale gasped, struggling. It wasn't me, it was the others. Mara shouted, trying to pull him off, but Reed was already moving. He fired. The shot echoed through the basement. Her father collapsed, blood spreading beneath him. Hale fell to the floor, coughing violently. Mara froze, staring down at the body. What did you do? Reed's voice was shaking. He was going to kill you. She knelt beside her father. His hand reached up weakly, finding hers. They're still here, he whispered. Underneath. Waiting. Then his eyes glazed over. For a long moment, the only sound was the rain hammering against the roof above. Then came a faint hum. Lights flickered to life overhead. Dozens of small red bulbs illuminating the walls. Each crate around them began to vibrate. Inside, something moved. Hale laughed, a dry, broken sound. You shouldn't have come here. You woke them up. Mara turned toward him. What do you mean, them? Before he could answer, one of the crates split open. A pale hand clawed out. The hand clawing from the crate was just the beginning. Rook barked frantically, circling, hackles raised. Mara's heart hammered against her ribs, her fingers shaking as she gripped her flashlight. The pale figure pulled itself fully from the crate, tall, emaciated, and grotesque. Skin stretched tight across bones, veins blackened, eyes milky and unblinking. Its mouth open in a silent scream, revealing teeth sharpened into unnatural points. Reed stepped back, gun raised, but even he looked unsure. What the hell is that? Mara swallowed, her voice tight. They're experiments. Survivors of Project Coldwater. The figure moved with unnatural speed, almost gliding across the floor. Rook lunged at it, teeth bared, but it was like the thing anticipated every move. With a flick of its wrist, it knocked the dog aside. Rook yelped, scrambling back. Mara fired her weapon. A sharp crack that echoed off the concrete walls. The figure staggered, but didn't fall. Instead, it froze for a moment, staring at her, then turned its head slowly, tilting it in a mocking gesture. From deeper in the room, more movement came. The crates vibrated, lids shaking violently. Shadows writhed inside. Mara's stomach twisted. There were dozens of them. Figures that had been waiting decades, hidden, forgotten, preserved in some cruel form of experimentation. Hale stepped closer, his own fear evident now. They're not like us anymore, but they remember everything. They wait, and when someone comes in, they react. Mara swallowed her fear, glancing down at the crumpled form of her father. We have to get him out of here. Now! Hale shook his head. He's unstable. The program hasn't left him. Reed grabbed Mara's arm. We're leaving. We can't fight all of them. We don't even know what they are. Before she could respond, a guttural scream echoed through the basement. One of the figures had broken free completely, moving toward them with terrifying speed. Reed fired, several shots ringing out, but the figure seemed unharmed. The lights flickered, and for a brief moment, Mara thought she saw dozens more, crawling for the shadows, filling the room with writhing bodies. Panic surged through her. Go, she shouted. We take the stairs and get out. They sprinted, Reed pulling her along, Rook barking furiously. The stairwell seemed to stretch endlessly downward, shadows twisting and elongating around them. The hum of machinery above pulsed like a heartbeat. At the bottom, a steel door blocked the exit to the old underground maintenance tunnels. Hale followed, holding a key. This will get you out, but not all of them. Mara didn't ask for clarification. She and Reed pushed the door open and stumbled into the narrow tunnels. The smell of wet earth mixed with the chemical stench of the prison. Water dripped from the ceiling. Behind them, faint scraping and distant moans echoed down the corridor. Rook darted ahead, nose to the ground, tracking a scent. They followed him through the twisting tunnels, every step echoing, every shadow threatening. After what felt like hours, they emerged into the open air, rain pelting their faces, lungs burning. The prison loomed behind them like a jagged tooth. The wind howled, carrying the sound of distant scraping from the walls, as if the building itself was alive and watching. Mara sank to her knees, gasping, her hands trembling. We made it, she whispered. Reed crouched beside her, trying to catch his own breath. We need backup. Call this in. Tell them what we saw. She shook her head. No one will believe us. They'll think we lost it. They'll shut it down again, cover it up. Rook whined, nudging Mara's hand. She looked down to see her father, sitting on the wet ground a few feet away, eyes distant. His body was trembling, hand-stained, as though holding on to some fragment of himself. "Dad," Mara said softly. She reached out. "It's over. We're out." His eyes flicked toward her, recognition flickering. "They never leave," he whispered. "They wait still." Her heart clenched. She wanted to hold him, protect him, but she knew it wasn't that simple. The program had broken him, and the things inside the prison still waited. Hale emerged from the shadows, leaning against the wall. "You've seen too much," he said, "and they've seen you." Mara looked at him, anger and fear battling in her chest. "Why are you still alive? Why keep this going?" Hale's face twisted with guilt and fear. I tried to stop them. But once you've been in, the system doesn't let go. I became the warden, the keeper, the only one who could keep it contained." "You let them suffer," she spat. "For decades." "They were my responsibility," he whispered, eyes downcast. "I kept the lights on, the doors locked, hoping no one else would fall. But it's never over, Mara. Never." A distant scream carried on the wind, and Mara shivered. Even from outside, she could feel the weight of the prison, decades of suffering and death, of minds twisted and bodies broken, echoing through its walls. She looked at her father again. He was alive, but broken. And in that moment, she realized survival wasn't the end. It would never be the end. The storm raged, wind tearing through the tree-line. But the prison remained, a jagged scar against the dark sky, waiting, always waiting, for the next soul who dared enter. Mara stood slowly, helping Reed to his feet. She patted Rook's head. "We go. Now, before it remembers us." They walked away from the prison, rain soaking through their clothes, hearts pounding, the distant hum of machinery fading behind them. Mara glanced back one last time. In the upper windows, shadows moved. Too many, all watching, waiting, unblinking. And somewhere deep inside, she knew the prison would never stop. It didn't care if you lived or died. It only waited. She took a deep breath. "We survived," she said. But as they disappeared into the storm, a faint whisper followed, carried on the wind. "But we are still here."